Hello everyone, welcome back to the One for Theta channel. And today we're going to talk about variables and expressions. So first of all, you might have seen in your classes your teachers using symbols, symbols or letters like X, A, B, in some math problems. And if you're not used to this, you might look at these and think, well, since when do we use letters in math? And what do these actually mean? What are the values of these letters? And I'm here to tell you that when you see these letters, your math teacher is usually talking about variables, which are certain symbols. There's just symbols that we use in a problem to represent values that may or may not have a certain value. So in a certain problem, your x may mean a specific number. In some problems, your x will have many values and it will depend on the case. So I will give you an example right now of an expression, all right? So what if you go to a market and you want to buy some apples and some bananas? And let's say your apples, they cost 3 hash, right? And your bananas cost, let's say, 5 hash, all right? And then you get to the mall and you think, okay, I feel like buying 2 apples and 3 bananas. And you want to know how much money you're going to spend with this. So then what you do, well, if every apple is 3 hash, you multiply 3 by 2, correct? Since you're going to buy 2 apples, which will give you 6 hash. And then if you're buying 3 bananas, you multiply that, how much a banana costs by the number of bananas you're going to buy, giving you 15 hash in this case. And if you want to find the total number, the total cost of your markets buying, you need to pay 21 hash, correct? This makes sense. And then in another day, you might go to the same mall and you think, well, but today I want to buy 10 apples and 5 bananas. And then you would do the same process. Instead of 2, you would write 10, right? But this is something very abstract, right? This is not something concrete. And what we do, and what the variables help us here, is that we can write certain sentences, certain expressions, to represent a situation. And so instead of going through all this thinking, we can just plug in values for variables. So in this case, why don't we assign variables for our values that we don't know, or for the values that vary. So in this case, the things that vary are the number of apples that are going to buy, right? Each time you go, you might buy a different number of apples. So let's say the number of apples is represented by A, right? And let's say the number of bananas is represented by B. And this is the number that you buy of fruits or of apples or bananas that you buy, right? The number of apples that you buy, the number of bananas that you buy, all right? A and B. Then we can write these out in an expression, in a mathematical sentence, so that we can, so that we can represent the situation, all right? So if we're saying that for every apple we buy, we pay 3 hash. So our number of apples that we buy is A, right? So how much you spend with apples is just the value A times 3, correct? The number of apples that you buy times the price of the apple, which is 3, will give you how much you spend with apples, right? And then you can do the same for bananas, right? So the number of bananas that you buy, B, times 5, will give you the price, the money you spent with bananas. And then if you want the total money you spend, you just add these 2 values together, right? And here we have an expression for the money you're going to spend in the markets. The result will be your number, but we're not doing an equal sign because that's something different, right? But the result of this will be the total money you spend. So let's take our previous example. Now if you wanted to buy 2 apples and 3 bananas, right? This is not the previous example, it's another example. Oh yeah, no, sorry. I want to buy 3 apples and I want to buy 2 apples and 3 bananas. Then you would just plug in your value for the number of apples you're going to buy, right? In A. So here you write 2 times 3 plus In this case, the number of bananas you buy is 3. 3 times 5. And then 2 times 3 is 6. Plus 15 equals 21. And that's the final price, just like we got there. But this time we got it with an equation. This makes it a lot easier, because you don't need to think that through every time. So even if you have a very big number, what if you want to buy 30 apples and, I don't know, 20 bananas? And then you just, again, plug them in for your variables. So instead of A, you get 30, because, now in this case, the number of apples you're going to buy is 30 times 3, plus the number of bananas that you're going to buy, 20 times 5, which gives you 90 plus 100. And in the end, you're going to spend 190 reais. Alright? So the important thing here is that your variables are very useful when formulating expressions, which are simply just generalizations of a certain situation. In this case, you wanted to buy a number of apples and bananas. You were not sure about how many apples you wanted to buy, not sure about how many bananas you wanted to buy, so you just assigned symbols. You assigned letters, in this case, that represented that value, which changed in every case. So this is your expression. And you might ask me, well, why do we need to write these expressions? Why don't we just think them through like that? This may seem simpler for you. But the thing is that in the future, you're going to have much more complicated situations. And trust me, to think this through without having symbols to represent these values is going to be much more difficult. So it's important that you can know, okay, when you see a certain value, see a certain variable, a certain symbol, a certain letter in your question, if it's an expression, which means it doesn't have an equal sign, all right? If it has an equal sign equals something else, it's an equation, and that's what we're going to talk about in our next video. If it doesn't have an equal sign, then these variables, they don't have specific values. They will vary in case by case, right? This is just useful for us to, answer certain situations, all right? So, thank you very much. If you have any other questions, you can ask us, all right? And see you in the next video.